Why don't we go ahead and just kick it off? So, for those of you that have joined so far, hi everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I'm Bob Purcell. I'm the CFO here at Billtrust. Um, I'm super excited to welcome you to today's webinar, the new ROI Playbook, Unpacking Research on the Impact of AR Automation. I've been at Billtrust now for about 2.5 years, but I've been in technology and fintech for as long as I can remember. I used to actually run accounts receivable at one point in time, a long time ago in my career, before all the gray hair that you see today. Anyway, so just a few quick housekeeping notes before we begin. This session is going to be recorded, so we'll be sending a copy out to all of you following the webinar. And if you have any questions during the presentation, please feel free. Enter them into the Q&A panel. We'll leave time at the end to answer as many as we can. But before we dive in, it is my pleasure. I want to make a warm welcome to the Vanson Bourne team, in particular, Lauren Budd. The Vanson Bourne's expertise and consultative approach has made this research incredibly actionable for all of you, for those that are finance and AR alike. And we're thrilled to be sharing it with all of you today. So Lauren, maybe you can tell us a little bit about yourself and then we can dive right in.
Yeah, of course. Thank you, Bob. So yeah, my name's Lauren. I'm a senior research manager at Vanson Bourne. So we are a market research agency specifically focused in the B2B tech sector. We actually celebrated our 25th birthday last September, and I think is a really nice viewpoint of how long we've been working in this space, in the B2B tech space, within the research realm. So yeah, I've been the main lead on this really interesting project that we've partnered with Billtrust on, and yeah, have been working with Bob and the team on the results, and I'm really excited to talk through what we found today. So before we do dig into the main results, it's probably useful to know who we actually spoke to and who our sample is based from. So we sent a quantitative online survey back in February and March of this year to 500 finance leaders based in the US. They covered a range of roles from board level through to management. They had global annual revenues between $100 million to $5 billion US dollars, and they also came from a range of private sectors. To take part in this survey, they also had to be using accounts receivable software because that was the topic that we were speaking about. And really the main aim of this research piece was to understand the level of automation within accounts receivable processes, the effectiveness of AR software, and also how AI is being integrated into software and processes. And that's really what we'll be covering in some detail today. So this is our agenda. There'll be 4 sections based on the results. So I'll be talking through the research and Bob will be adding his expertise based on his real life experiences. So we'll see the importance of AR automation and how it can help to accelerate payments and the ROI that organizations are seeing from using AR software. Then we'll see how the software can be used to help support strategic initiatives. Then we'll be having a look at some obstacles to actually seeing the value that many are seeing, but there's still some work to do to fully see the benefits. And then we'll be ending on AI-powered insights and how they can really drive stronger financial performance. So lots to cover today, some really interesting stats that we're going to talk through. But before we dig into this, we actually had a question for all of you, the audience. So one of the first questions we asked our respondents in this survey was the level of automation that they have within their finance department. And we thought it would be really interesting to ask you guys the same question and see whether we're getting similar results to what we found back in March, or whether things may have moved on a bit more. And based on your answer, hopefully you'll be able to resonate with some of the stats as we go through and work out, you know, where you're at and what advice you might be able to get from Bob in terms of moving to the next stage. So a poll should be coming up on your screen now if it hasn't already. And the question asks, which of the following best describes the level of automation in your organization's finance department? Do they A, have high levels of automation, so almost all processes are fully automated? Do they have some level of automation, so a number of processes are at least partially automated? Are there low levels of automation, so one or two processes are partially automated? Or do they have no automation at the moment and no processes are automated? I'm going to hand over to Bob to have a look at the results and talk through them. Hopefully we've got some coming through.
Yes, so they just came through. I did get a notice that I couldn't vote, which is unfortunate. Yeah, so well, really interesting. Of those on the call here, it looks like about one of you actually showed high level of automation. So not that many, but it seems like most folks are split between some level of automation and low level of automation. And there's also one that says no automation. So it looks like it's between B and C is where everybody's landing, which to be honest with you is not surprising at all. I think a lot of people look at their ERP, they lean on that, and they accept what they can get really from that. Every process has got some level of automation in it. It just depends. You may not realize it, but it does. But that's an interesting finding. We'll go ahead and compare that to what we saw in the broader survey that we did.
Yeah, so high automation was slightly higher in the survey that we did, but most were falling in the some level of automation category, which seems to align with what you've just said, Bob, in terms of the results we're seeing today. What we're going to do over the next few slides is have a look at what those with high levels of automation are seeing compared to those with actually no or low automation. And what we'll come on to see is the benefit of higher levels of automation. So the fact that it was only one person today that said they have that higher level of automation hopefully means that the rest of the people that have answered the poll today can have a look at, the steps that those organizations have taken to see the value that we'll come on to have a look at. So starting with this first graph, and just to talk through what this is showing, because I appreciate there's quite a lot of words and data on this slide. So this is having a look at the average reduction in days to sale outstanding and days to pay since implementing AR software. And this has been split by those with that high level of automation versus those with low levels of automation. So we can see in the dark purple, those with high automation are seeing around a 41% reduction in DSO, compared to those with low levels of automation that are seeing a 29% reduction. And it's a similar story for DTP here, although the differences are slightly larger, but the story is similar in that those with high levels of automation are seeing greater reductions on average than those with low levels of automation. So what this is showing us really is that automation seems to be contributing to faster conversion of sales, stronger cash management, all of which will be improving cash flow and helping to drive operational efficiencies, and ultimately creating better financial visibility and control. And Bob, it would be great if you could talk a bit more about DSO and DTP and the importance of that in relation to automation.
Yeah, well, I think you could probably ask any CFO or treasurer or head of AP or AR. I think we'll all probably say very similar things and why automation is so important. The velocity of your cash inflows is absolutely critical, right? And our goals, right, is to minimize our DSO and to maximize your DPO, right? You want to have that relationship, accelerate the velocity of cash inflows, and then truly manage your cash outflows. That's how you get the right working capital management. It's always going to be one of our goals and why it's so important. And so these are actually very key metrics I know in my life. I've been looking at these since as long as I can remember from the very first time that I was probably just an analyst in accounting. I've been looking at these. So it's always important to be focused on these in your business.
Definitely. And it's great to see some evidence of the value of it that people are seeing. So that's great. Okay. Thanks, Bob. Let's move on now to some more benefits that people are seeing from using AR software. So we actually found that 100% of organizations, so everyone we spoke to that is investing in AR software, report tangible benefits, which obviously we would hope would be the case given they're investing in it, but it is showing that it is proving value. And these were the top 3 areas that respondents reported as benefits from using AR software automation. You can see the top answer that came out was 42% who are saying that it's optimizing payment processing fees and policies. That could also include virtual card payment processing as well. And that will obviously be ensuring that payments are processed faster, which also links quite nicely to the stat on the right here, the 36% who are saying that they've seen faster invoice processing and generation through using AR software automation. Not ignoring the 39% in the middle here that also say it's improved the management of governance and compliance. And we will be coming on to talk about that in a bit more detail later on. But Bob, it would be great to hear your views on these 3 top benefits that have come out from the results.
Yeah, I would say this completely aligns with what I probably would expect and what I'm kind of seeing as well in like real life, right? Maybe on the left, right, with the optimized payment processing and fees and policies, right? I think there's a number of great benefits here, right, that you see with those that are investing in some AR automation. And maybe I'll start out with a thing probably people don't think about most, and that's your customer user experience, right? When you give your customers the flexibility and ability to pay however they want to, I think that's a great user experience, right? If they want to pay with a virtual card or card not present and do that and leverage the float on that or get some other benefits, it allows them to do that. And you will also accelerate your speed to cash, right? Goes right to what we just talked about, the velocity of cash. So makes a lot of sense in the middle. Certainly, when you think about what's in the middle here about the governance and compliance, having a vehicle that allows you to manage that and is proactive with ensuring that you're compliant with all the right regs and rules around taking a virtual card or accepting that type of payment, absolutely critical. Let someone else focus on that and let you focus on what's important in driving your business. And then, of course, faster invoice processing. I kind of mentioned that a little bit earlier, but great examples of what you'd see in the business. And I know I've been able to take advantage of all these.
Great. Yeah, and it's great to see those real tangible benefits coming to life as well from the results. So that's great. Thank you, Bob. And then final slide in this initial section around AR automation. One of the big kind of key stats from this research piece was that 93%, so the majority of our survey respondents say that AR software has delivered the expected ROI. And given the current economic climate, and every investment does feel like it's scrutinized. Obviously, we want to make sure we're getting value from our investments. The fact that AR software is delivering on its promise and is delivering value is really key. And some of you might be wondering, okay, well, what about the other 7%? Why aren't they seeing an ROI? We didn't specifically ask, but we did see some slight differences of who that 7% was made up of. And it was the smaller organizations that were more likely to be in that group. So it was around 10% of our smaller organizations that haven't seen the ROI compared to 3% of the larger ones. But in any case, it was the majority that saw that ROI, which is really key. And yeah, Bob, I can see you nodding there as well. I don't know if you've got anything to add to that.
Yeah, it's like I think this is a great example of some fantastic use of technology, right? We probably see it in a lot of places in our, but this is one of those places where it comes fast and it's a very clear ROI that you can get. And I think for, if you kind of, we look at it from a lens of, okay, what does this mean for us, right? The practitioners that are doing this, right? Whether you're anywhere from a CFO or to, someone managing collections, you know, automation is doing more with less, right? Or getting more scale, right? It's about transforming AR into a revenue enabler and accelerator, and being prepared for the future. Like I think all of us, right? If you haven't heard the word AI yet, you might be on a desert island somewhere. And so AR automation is embedded with machine learning and with AI. And so being on that track, this could be your first foray into that. And when we automate, right, we reduce friction uh, in our processes. We eliminate bottlenecks like invoice errors and manual approvals, delayed customer follow-ups. And so what does that get all of us, right? It gets us quicker payments and a healthier cash position. This is going to be a theme. You hear me say this a lot, right? It's that velocity of cash. And so what I would say for all of you out there on this call is if you're still dealing with paper checks or manual tasks, right? Don't think of, AR automation as this big leap, right? Think of it as a series of steps that you can take, right? Start with one area. Think of maybe your invoicing and payment reminders, right? And then you kind of think about another area and another area. I think the tools that are out there, certainly Billtrust, allow you to knock off these areas one at a time, and then it becomes, a little bit addictive, right? You kind of see the automation, you get your time back, you see less errors, you want to kind of continue rolling with that. So that would be my call to action with you is start today.
Yeah, no, and I completely agree. And like you say, it's small steps, it's a journey, and the end goal's constantly going to move because things evolve over time as well. AI has been a very hot topic in the research we've been doing over the last year or two, in particular, but equally it has been around for some time, but it's really accelerated over the last year or so, and we'll come on later to see the real impact that we're seeing from that. You also mentioned, Bob, around automation, freeing up time and reducing friction, which actually really ties nicely to the next section, where we'll be looking at how AR software automation is a strategic investment due to the benefits and efficiencies that it brings. So another big stat that came out from the research is 92% here that are saying AR software has helped them effectively mitigate financial and compliance risks. We touched on this briefly earlier as being one of the top benefits, and we can see here that the majority that are investing in AR software are saying that it's helped mitigate those. And from some of the verbatim comments that we got from the research, a lot of our respondents were saying that it's equipped them to stay ahead of evolving global regulatory requirements. It's helped them maintain compliance across different invoicing operations, and it's really helped them gain real-time insights into buyer creditworthiness and also emerging risk trends. And that is enabling them essentially to make smarter decisions that protect their cash flow and protect their business ultimately. So yeah, some really strong feelings were coming out around this topic in particular. And Bob, I know you touched on this briefly earlier, but was there anything that you would like to add to that?
Yeah, this is actually a frequently overlooked, but there is a big shift here that we're starting to see, in that AR software isn't being treated as a back office overhead anymore, right? The data is super clear, right? 92% of finance leaders view it as a strategic investment. And I think depending on the survey that you kind of take, right, but certainly in what we found is about seven out of 10 are allocating more than 10% of their budgets to automation and AI this year. That's important. That's going to only accelerate. So I think it's important to kind of think about, well, what's changed in the environment, right? Why now? What's different? And I think today the stakes are just they're just very different, right? We continue to see high interest rates. There's people, but shortage of very talented labor is still there. High cash flow pressure. There's always been cash flow pressure, but today it seems like it's a little bit higher. Uncertainty in the environment with tariffs, and I think finance leaders just need more control. We want more visibility, and we want more agility in what we're doing. And AR software gives us that, right? We're no longer a world where accounts receivable is just this kind of wheel that operates in the background. It is a strategic lever of ours to improve what we do. And so it also helps us reduce risk in our business, improve forecast accuracy, and I don't think it's too much of a stretch to say that it gives us a competitive advantage, without a doubt. So maybe again, like, what if I'm you, right? What would I do? I'll tell you what I've done, but this is some guidance, right? And again, it doesn't matter your role, right? Whether you're the CFO on the call today, or an AR manager, or an AR analyst, right? I would say maybe there's like 3 things that you can probably do today, right? One is step back and look at where you spend your time and your money, right? That's super important, right? Are your team members, or are you kind of stuck in a bunch of manual tasks that software and technology can do for you, to free you up to do other more important stuff? I would build a business case on what the investment of what this might do for you. Maybe it's automating your cash application, which I think it's always kind of a challenge for most companies, whether it's employing some digital invoicing, or improving customer portals, right? But build that investment, right? That continuous improvement, I think, is super important. And then lastly, right, we don't get anything done in back office without our technology partners. So you've got to engage with them and ask them kind of what's available today, whether it's third parties or your internal partners, and what's possible if you take the next step using AR automation and AI. But we're all probably moving into that time of year, right? Around summer is when most companies start to kind of kick off their plan, and you start to be thinking about your plan for next year. Perfect time to build that business case and get in front of the line. That's what I always tell people. You're in front of the line, chances are you're going to get what you're looking for. If you come at the end of a budget cycle, you better have a no-brainer business case. And so do it now. That's what I say. It's a great time to start to act.
Definitely, yeah. And when the evidence is there from the value that it brings, particularly at that strategic level, and like you were saying, Bob, it's not a back office function anymore. This is driving real value across the business. And yeah, the research results really support that as well. Which links to the next slide, actually, around the time and efficiencies that AR software is bringing. So we found that 95%, nearly all of our respondents, say that automating accounts receivable has increased their team efficiency. We're already busy. The to-do list seems to get bigger and bigger. The pace of the technological change we're seeing at the moment is super fast as well. And like you were saying, Bob, this can really help drive that competitive advantage, because if team efficiencies are improved through automation, then that's giving people time to focus on higher value tasks that really are meaningful. It eliminates those manual tasks that automation can do for you. And I suspect that's only going to continue to accelerate. And it comes back to what you're saying, Bob, around, the time is now, because it's not going to slow down. And there's a nice quote from one of our respondents. They were in the business and professional services sector, and they said that third-party payment software can process a large number of transactions easing the burden on employees and allowing them to focus on other important tasks, which I think just summarizes exactly what we've just been talking about. That friction's reduced and there is time to really focus on those meaningful, competitive and strategic tasks. Okay. Anything else you wanted to add on this, Bob, before we move on to the obstacles?
Yeah, maybe just really quick. I think
yeah, of course.
for the folks on this webinar, they all get it. And I'm probably one of the individuals. I'm constantly asking my organization for more, right? But we're not resourced to add more heads, and so we've got to find ways to do things smarter, be more efficient, so we can do those other things. And I think it's a win for everybody, because doing other things in your function allows you to develop professionally, right? It teaches you new skills. And like I keep saying, right, let technology do what it does best, right? Let it step in, do those things that are more routine, and automate these things. And it's actually even doing the non-routine now. It's watching you what you do, and it's learning from that. We'll get to that, right? But this is just going to allow all of us to kind of have a richer experience of wherever we work.
Definitely, completely agree. It's exciting as well to know where this could be going. I think at a time it felt quite scary, but I now think hopefully we're moving to a stage where actually it feels exciting. Okay, so we've seen the benefits of automation. I think we've hopefully made that very clear in terms of the benefits it has to help manage compliance, faster cash flows, and freeing up that time and driving efficiencies. But we also found in this research that there are still barriers and obstacles that organizations are facing to be able to automate more. And given the fact the poll we did today showed that many people are in the some or low adoption, low automation stages, it may be that many of you are feeling some of the obstacles that we're going to talk through on the next slide. So we found that 99% are facing barriers to automating their AR processes, which is really interesting because we found some people have high levels of automation, but are still facing barriers to being able to get the most value from that automation. So even if you're at that high stage, there is still work to do to really see the value and make it as effective as possible, essentially. And that's also where the AR software comes in and the support from Billtrust as well. So these were the top 4 barriers that we found organizations face to automating AR processes. And you can see that there's a clear kind of top barrier coming out. The percentages here are very similar, whereas this one here, 55%, are struggling with integrating their accounts receivable software with other systems. And that really stands out as a key area that organizations essentially need support with and expertise to make sure there is that seamless integration across their vital systems. And Bob, it would be great to hear from you, your experience and Billtrust support around integration here.
Happy to do that. And this is actually coming from my experience, having implemented other software tools, right? It always comes down to how you connect the wires, right? To be very simple. And in the top, I've always seen this as the top barrier is integrating with whatever your existing systems are. And there's really a couple of different aspects, right? You really need the assistance of your internal, technology team to help you do that. But a lot of companies, I know I want to make sure our, internal dev team at Billtrust are solving problems for our customers. I don't want to pull them back and help me solve something that I've got. And I'm sure you're all probably thinking about that the same way at your companies. And so what do, right? Well, I think there's a lot of the ERPs that they're not perfectly implemented, right? So let's be honest, right? We didn't have all the money in the world and all the time in the world to do it. So there's probably some places that it's not completely, implemented perfectly, which leaves a gap, right? And you may have also just some disconnected systems, right? Which creates manual workarounds that you need. And so when the AR isn't synced with all these, right, you end up kind of with different teams working in different silos to solve these things, and that's not a great place to be. And so when you think about, like, for example, I'll use Billtrust, right? We've got a world-class professional services team that really understands your issues. We've got a number of ERPs we connect with and connectors for those that really accelerate the path through that, so you don't have to lean on your internal IT team. We can do a lot of that for you. So I guess my message overall is that very solvable. Yes, it's going to be a challenge. Most likely it's a challenge for you, but it's very, very solvable with, a lot of the modern AR platforms, they can integrate with the right tools. You can, eliminate blind spots and automate what's kind of slowing you down today. Some other kind of top barriers you probably see is around data quality or the accuracy or the complexity of your data, but these certainly aren't reasons to avoid automation, right? In fact, I think they're exactly why you need automation, right? Is to kind of eliminate that stuff. And again, right, using modern AR software that's got built-in data validation, real-time visibility, and the tools to help you simplify, some of your probably most complex workflows in your business. I think that's what you really need to kind of be thinking about. Not necessarily like, why can't you do this, but why should you do this, right? And that's what this is really all about. So my advice to you, full of advice today, right, is maybe start out by doing an inventory and map your tech stack, right? What do you have, and what does that data flow look like, right? Talk to any third-party vendors, your IT, about like what real-time integration looks like. And again, I think I mentioned this a couple minutes ago, is find out where your pain points are, right? Where do you spend most of your time and most of your energy and most of your money, and solve for that first, right? That's going to get you the biggest bang for your buck. Fixing these roadblocks is not hard, but it's how you accelerate your cash and you'll get better forecasting. So that's where I would start.
That's great advice. Thank you, Bob. And yeah, you mentioned the data quality and complexity as well. And we can see that there are obviously key barriers coming out as well. So yeah, it's really interesting to know how AR software automation can overcome these challenges that we can see many are facing. So yeah, if you can resonate with that, you're not alone, but Bob's advice is a great solution to overcome them. So thank you. Right, our final section today on the agenda is all about AI. Obviously, we can't ignore it, as Bob said at the start. If you've not heard of AI, then probably living in a hole. So it's everywhere. We can't ignore it. So we did ask some questions in this research piece around whether AI is implemented within finance departments and also within AR software. And we found some really interesting results. So similar to the automation question that you guys answered, we also asked our respondents to what extent their organization has adopted AI within its accounts receivable processes. We're not going to ask you again, but just to give you a brief overview of the results that we found. So we found around a quarter said that they have fully adopted AI within their processes. It was around 6 in 10 that have some adoption, and then we had around 20% that haven't yet started adopting AI within their accounts receivable processes. So organizations were very much at different stages in their journey when it comes to implementing AI. And what we did was cut the data by those groups so we could see whether those that are using AI are seeing different results than those that aren't. And that's what we're going to talk through in this final section. So you probably recognize this graph from the very first section where we split it by the automation levels. So we've got the same again, the average reductions in DSO and DTP since implementing AR software. And this time in the dark purple, we've got those that have fully adopted AI, And in the light purple, we've got those that have not yet adopted AI. And the average reductions for DSO aren't that dissimilar, but we can see those that have fully adopted AI are seeing around a 41% reduction in DSO from doing so. The percentages are slightly bigger when we look at average reduction in days to pay. We can see that it's around 50% reduction for those that have fully adopted AI compared to around a third reduction in terms of those that haven't adopted AI. And when we spoke to our respondents about this, there was a lot of conversation around AI adding intelligence and enabling finance teams to essentially act faster and prioritize collections more effectively, which was driving these greater reductions that we're seeing from adopting AI. We also found that those that have fully adopted AI were more likely to be completely satisfied with their AR software. So you can see here that 58% are completely satisfied from using AI within their AR software, compared to 41% that have not adopted AI. And what I would say is this is at the very top end of the scale. So those that are completely satisfied, they don't feel like there's too much more that they need to do that would make them have higher levels of satisfaction. The other groups were, I think, some level of satisfaction or no satisfaction. And you may be thinking, well, 4 in 10 are still completely satisfied, even though they're not using AI. And I think really what we found from this research was using AR software is the first step to start to be satisfied with, you know, the benefits that we spoke through previously. But those that are using AI within that are taking it to the next level. You know, their satisfaction's higher, their reductions in DSO and DTP is higher as well. And as that AI integration starts to probably increase over the next year or so, really not integrating it is likely to put potentially organizations further behind. So yeah, some really interesting results here. And Bob, it would be great to hear some real life impact from kind of integrating AI within accounts receivable.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you, the results on the left-hand side here probably don't surprise me that much. I think it's still early days with adding, you know, AI on top of software, and a lot of software, AR automation software is starting to kind of gain momentum in its use of AI. But this is the promise. This is the future that I know is kind of is out there right now, is when your AR team can come in, you know, one day, and the embedded AI in your AR automation software says, hey, I watched what you did the last 3 days, you know, in the first hour that you kind of logged in, or the first, you know, half of day, and you did these 3 tasks, and so I've done that for you already. Would you like to accept the results? Like that, to me, like I get chills, and you know, when I think about that, because that is like the promise of AI, right? That's delivering, so you can say, yes, I'll take that. Now I'm going to go repurpose that time that I would have had to do all that stuff again. I don't have to. AI just did it for me, but I'm going to go spend my time doing other stuff, right? Or maybe working with another customer on payment terms, or talking with sales about how to better optimize within, you know, the verticals that you sell into. So, right, it gets back to like accelerating your DSO, you know, maybe some early payment risk reduction, right? And having AI kind of lean in on that for you to tell you where your blind spots may be, where you don't have to do the work to do that, right? Clearly improving some forecast accuracy and enhancing, you know, the customer experience as well. I think all of those things are kind of that's what really matters here. And when I think about it from my perspective, right, from a CFO, right, AI brings the financial control and predictability, you know, to AR, right? AR automation is awesome. AI is like the turbo boost on top of that. Removes a lot of the guesswork out of your forecasting and collections, and it helps your team do more with less, really, or do more with the same even, right? And especially environments where resources are tight, which, you know, finance and accounting, I can't think of a place where we didn't have tight resources, right? And so I guess kind of circling back to like, what could you do today again? I'll tell you what we did, right? We went back and we focused on the AI use cases. Where could we best deploy AI, right? It could be in places like payment risk detection or invoice matching or credit analysis, right? But those are great areas where you can think of like, where's the best place? What takes me the most amount of time that I can deploy AI? That's one place to do. I would say, if you're working with an AR partner right now, ask them what capabilities that they have available. Get in there and start to leverage that as quickly as possible. And look for areas where your team still relies on, the warm tinglies or gut feels to make a call, right? That's a great place. Let AI pull the data and do all the heavy lifting and analysis for you. You can still say, hey, here's what my experience tells me, but you'll have the data to back up what you're trying to do. And that gives you true predictive insights, right? So you're probably early in your journey. I think a lot of people probably are, but start by identifying, that one use case, the one high impact use case. Could be predictive analytics, could be cash forecasting, or even dispute detection, right? Find that one place, and just, you got to start somewhere. So, I think we said it earlier, right? Take off, take a bite, take a step, and then you can kind of take the next one.
Definitely, and it sounds similar to the automation story as well, the journey and taking those steps. So yeah, thank you, Bob. Okay, you also touched on enhancing the customer experience as well, and we do touch on that on this final slide on the AI section, and the final slide on our stats today. So this graph here is showing the percentage that strongly agree with the following statements. Again, this is kind of the top end of a scale, so they could have somewhat agreed with it or they would have disagreed. So it's those that have really strong sentiment towards these statements. And you can see some quite big differences here between those that have fully adopted AI in dark purple versus those that have not adopted AI. And these were some of the biggest differences we found in this research piece. So we can see that 56% of those that have fully adopted AI are more like are strongly agreeing with AR software helping them effectively mitigate financial and compliance risks, compared to around a third that haven't adopted AI. And some of the context around this and the verbatims that we found were people talking around AI providing early identification of payment risk before it then impacts cash flow, providing teams to act sooner, a bit like what you were saying, Bob, where you come in and AI is already ready, ticked off some actions, here's the result, and then you can action that more quickly because it's done some of the heavy lifting for you already. And then we actually found on the right here that almost double the proportion of those that have fully adopted AI are saying that AR software has enhanced their customer experience, helping them strengthen relationships and retain business. And this is one of the areas that AI really seems to be impacting, because it means that organizations can act more quickly based on the insights that AI has generated, and that is having a direct impact on the customer experience, the relationships being strengthened, and clearly these results are showing that it is influencing customer success, likely due to the intelligent, streamlined processes that AI can bring within AR software. And just to bring in one of our final quotes here, this is an organization that isn't currently using AI, but they're saying that there's no question that AR software is powerful and they're going to continue to use it, but they would like to get smarter about automated payment tracking and invoicing services, and they believe AI can help with that. And it comes back to what I was saying on the previous slide around AR software is really helpful and powerful at the moment, but the next step is embedding AI within that to really get smarter about how it's being used. And ultimately, the more and more organizations do this, the more time pressure it's going to add to make sure that you're keeping up with the level of AI integration that we've seen. So that's the end of our stats for today. We have got some key takeaways and a summary. But before we do move on, Bob, was there anything else you wanted to add on compliance and customer experience when it comes to AI?
Yeah, maybe I think it's important, right? We kind of talked about like the investment cases to kind of use, because there's always something behind the value that you get with employing AR, and I would say AR automation, like it's got AI embedded. Most platforms do now today, and there's a lot of advances happening. So it's not like you have to go outside of the AR automation tool and go find a chat GPT link or Perplexity. It's built in there now. Certainly the case of Billtrust. So leverage that, but really think about those places. I encourage my team to be talking with legal and our compliance teams to kind of say, what can we do and get in front of, right? And how do we further build the case for further investments so that we can actually see the benefits kind of from improving either our risk compliance or customer credit worthiness or other things. And so I would say work outside of your teams, because there's going to be a lot of benefits that you can kind of get from using AR automation with embedded AI on top of it.
Definitely. Thank you. Right, there's just a couple more slides and then we'll move on to the Q&A. So just some key takeaways for everyone, really. There's been a lot that we've discussed today. So to summarize the kind of key stats from the research, we saw that 93% have seen a return on their investments when it comes to AR software. It's delivering measurable gains, and it's a worthy investment that we saw is impacting cash flow in a positive way. We also discussed the stability and how AR software is improving team efficiency, it's enhancing the customer experience, and ultimately it's strengthening relationships and helping to retain business. It's driving that competitive advantage. And then finally, we discussed the value of AI and automation. We saw that it's resulting in bigger reductions in DSO and DTP. It's increasing satisfaction levels. It's adding intelligence and allowing for insights to be generated more quickly, which is also helping manage compliance and again, having a positive impact on that customer experience. So in summary then, kind of tying everything that I've spoken about from the research perspective and Bob's advice, we thought it would be useful to just include some key call to actions really for everyone today. So we talked about automation and how it is helping with faster payment cycles and streamlined operations. And Bob, you spoke around not thinking of automation as a leap. See it as a journey. Start with those small steps, start with one area and scale from there. We also found that AR software is reducing those financial and compliance risks, and it's boosting team efficiency. It's freeing up time to focus on those more strategic tasks. And Bob spoke around, budget season coming up. Is AR automation on the table? You can see the value it's bringing, and there's good evidence to really show that the board will be listening to that. And then finally, AI being fundamental and also helping organizations be future ready, because those that are using AI are seeing those greater benefits. And we found in our research that there was kind of two groups and two stages with where they are in their AR journey. Some are in the earlier stages, and if that is you today, Bob spoke around identifying that high impact use case as a start point. And those more advanced, thinking about how you can take that further, how you can augment your team within that. So hopefully some really useful actions that everyone can take away today, and hopefully this summary is useful. If anyone's interested in hearing more about the research, and do let us know, there is an ebook available as well. But before we tie up, we'd love to take any questions from the audience. So Bob, I'll hand over to you to see if we've had any come in. Oh, you're on mute, Bob.
I was really good today at that until the very end. Uh, yeah, I think we've got a couple coming in. I think maybe just a little bit of my call to action for everybody, what you can do today, right? Definitely, make sure you're framing, AR automation as a strategic investment. It's not just a cost saver. It will do that, but it is a strategic investment. Get in early now in your budget, right? Make sure that this, the use of AR automation and AI is part of your plan, and then, it's always good to benchmark your organization. How are you investing versus your peers? So let's see, questions kind of coming in. Actually, Lauren, uh, maybe you can hit on what sectors did the survey cover? Where did the respondents come from?
Yeah, sure. So I think at the start we just showed that they came from private sectors. There were a few key sectors that this research was focused on in particular. Financial services was one, heavy equipment, business and professional services, healthcare and life sciences, and transport. And we did see that transport tended to lag slightly behind some of the other sectors in the results. So yeah, hopefully that's helpful to know what the sectors were made up of.
Yeah. Let's see, we got another one here. Improvements in DSO DTP reductions are substantial with automation and AI involved. Is this a trend we're going to expect to see continuing as tech becomes more ingrained into these processes, or is it likely to reach a glass ceiling of effectiveness after a while? I'll chime in, Lauren. You can chime in as well. I don't know if there is a ceiling, right? To be very honest, right? I think there's so many things that we are just now learning how to best employ automation and AI into that I think we're going to see improvements for a considerable amount of time, right? And I embrace that, right? Because as individuals and folks that like look to be more engaged in the business, right? That's where I want to be spending more of my time. It's where I want my team spending their time. And the more technology can do for them, the better, right? And it allows us to kind of use our free thinking and analysis and other ways to help the business. We got another question. What is the initial investment for this tool? I assume it's like what would something like this cost? And AR automation, I think it all depends on the complexity of your organization. It depends on how much you want to employ. I think one of the things we talked about very early was, right, you can take off bites, right, out of things. For example, with the Billtrust product, you can choose to just do invoicing and not thinking about the end to end, right? If it's not a pain point, right? Of course, the entire offering works better together. But if your pain point may just be invoicing, right, and you want to just make sure you automate that, I think you can knock that off, and it depends on the volume of your business and the complexity. And so it just depends on the size of the organization, really. But I would say the point that I would make on this is the ROI for the Billtrust offerings is incredibly compelling. And it's not just paper ROI, it's cash ROI, right? So you will see the cash savings, in a very short period of time. So long answer to the question. Okay, let's see. Do we have any other questions? Yeah, so another question that says you showed how AI is adding value in AR processes. Did you ask anything about what type of AI organizations are looking for in particular? Lauren, I think I don't know if you want to take a
Yeah,
stab.
it's probably best given that's on the research. So yes, we did ask. So we asked how important different elements of AI is for organizations. And we found that automation actually came out top, which is probably not surprising given the amount of organizations that were hoping to automate more of their current AR processes. Another one that we found came out near the top was predictive analytics. That was an area that people are more likely to say was critical in embedding within their AR processes. And I know you touched on that, Bob, and being able to predict what could be coming in to then be able to take the relevant action before, you know, any financial risk comes into play. I don't think we asked anything else in particular on AI elements. AI agents was another area that we covered, but it was a bit less mature in terms of the responses we were getting. I think that's a bit of a newer area that organizations hadn't quite got to the stage of implementing or exploring as much as the likes of automation and predictive analytics. Hopefully that answers that question.
Yeah, I think it does. Okay, I think we've got one last, at least that I can see. How do organizations wanting to adopt AI into AR ensure they have the right skills and capabilities to implement it? Well, I would say twofold. The first thing is, you know, I think with any kind of AR automation organization, that, you know, certainly Billtrust, right? We've got a world-class professional services organization that are going to be able to kind of do quite a bit for you. I would say maybe on a slightly different, you know, type of view of that question is one of the things that we did in my team was we held a series of AI challenges, right? And we identified a couple of folks that were what I would call the SMEs, right? The subject matter experts, those that had a high affinity to try to learn something about AI. And we let them really dig in deep, find a couple good use cases, and then start to teach others. And I think that might be a good place to start is, right, find a couple people in your organization that may have a high affinity to learn and be involved in that, and let them be the anvil, right, for your effort. And I always say it's always good to know your data, right? So how it's sitting in an ERP and how you extract it, you probably do that a lot already. That, as long as you kind of understand maybe how to pull data out of your ERP, or maybe work with someone, that's probably what you probably need to know. And after that, I think, you know, a lot of firms, certainly Billtrust, will kind of take it from there to help you kind of implement, you know, in what you do. So I don't think it's a massive heavy lift, but knowing your data is probably pretty critical. Well, Lauren, that's all the questions that we have. This has been awesome.
Yeah, loved it. And we're just about on time as well,
Look at
which
that.
is great. But yeah, it's been great chatting with you, Bob, and really hearing the call to actions from a lot of this as well, and the advice that you've given everyone today. And if there are any more questions, please feel free to email us or fire them our way. We'd be more than happy to answer them. And yeah, just thank you, Bob, for inviting me along today. And it's been great partnering with Billtrust on this really interesting research piece.
Yeah, thank you, Lauren. Awesome work that Vanson Bourne team did, and I appreciate your time today. And thank you to all of our attendees, right, for coming and to learn a little bit and hear about what our research says. So thanks a lot. Have a great day. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.